Hello and welcome back to Solo Board Gaming Presents Battle of the Bulge 1944 from Worthington Games. And this is part 2 of our overview, and this will be the play demo. And remember, it's a play demo, so we'll just be demonstrating a turn, maybe two, to show how the game flows. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so the US starts their first turn with just 6 resource points, as it says on the track there. And as we go through right up to turn 10, their resource points will actually increase. So the US have an increased ability to resist. Completely the opposite for the German forces here at the top. Their turn 1 starts with 20 resource points. That's when they had the most resource, but slowly those resource points, as we get towards turn 10, will actually decrease as they start to run out of resources. And it's that asymmetry which gives us the game balance. And of course, usefully, as I mentioned before, just in the corner here, this is your resource point use. Now remember, Americans are starting with 6, the Germans are starting with 20, because it's up to the Germans to attack. There's not a lot of different uses, so it's kept very simple. To refit an armour unit, to give it back a step, for instance, would be 2 resource points. But to refit an infantry unit, just 1 resource point. To activate 1 unit for movement, it's 1 resource point. That's regardless whether it's armour or infantry, just 1 resource point to activate it. And to activate units for combat, it's also 1 resource point per hex attacked. Or if we're activating units of 2 armies to attack a hex, it's 2 resource points per hex attacked. What's that all about? I'll show you. Okay, let's take a look at this US unit here. And let's just say, these aren't starting positions, let's just say that this is where these 2 pink units, infantry, one of them airborne, has moved adjacent to this hex, and they want to attack that hex. So, they both moved. Now they can both attack, or that it can be the other way around. You can attack first and then move, but either way you can attack and move during the same turn. And that's the same for every single unit. A lot of flexibility there. So we've moved up to adjacent to this US unit here. These 2 units of the 7th Army will attack this unit there. For that attack, they will pay just 1 resource point, not 1 resource point each. The attack will cost you just 1 resource point. That's it. So it's a resource point per hex attacked, no matter how many units attack that hex. 3 units attacking that hex, you still only spend 1 resource point. Now, if, however, we had this situation, like so, and I want to carry out this all-out attack on this unit here, it now involves units of 2 different armies. And this is why we have the colour coding. So, because it takes more resource to coordinate attacks between different armies, the attack on that hex by these 3 units here now costs 2 resource points. 1 resource point for this attack, or 2 resource points for that attack. Simples. And another thing I've really appreciated, just look how well these extra large counters look on the map, and how crystal clear is the information that we need to play the game. It's all there. It's on the counters. and it's the German first turn. I'm looking at this northern sector up here. And once again, just to help orient you, there's St. Vith is just down here. Malmedy is just here. And basically, the route to the northwest is here. We have Liège further up there. This route here, I think, then, is going to be a main thrust for the 6th Panzer Army. And of course, we've got some strong armoured divisions here in the shape of the 12th SS and the 1st SS. And we know the horrors that those bastards carried out in Malmedy during this campaign. But that's for another day. But wearing that hat, I'm seeing that if I'm playing Germany now, the only thing that stands in my way is this really weak single-step unit of the 14th, and they're motorised infantry, so they're mechanised infantry, but carrying the armour symbol, and for game purposes they act as if they are armoured, as if they are an armoured unit. So I think we need to punch our way through here. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to spend 1 resource point for these 2 infantry units here, including this airborne, to attack that US unit there. So you've got 3 steps attacking a single step. And each of these roll 3 dice each. Now, we can look over on our terrain chart and it'll tell us that the other terrain in this hex, because the road doesn't make a difference, is woods. So each of these guys have to subtract 1 die each. So instead of 3 dice and 3 dice, it's now 2 dice and 2 dice. Total of 4 dice. But it's not easy to get results because only an armoured result will cause a hit there. So I'm going to add in my artillery to this bombardment. One-time use of the artillery per turn. So now I've got 2 die and 2 die because of the woods. Is 4, 5 die we're going to roll. Let's move that in there if you can see it. Let's get our 5 dice. Here's our 5 dice. Let's roll. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, wow. Look at that. Let's move them all up there. Can you see them all? Yes, I think you can. The 2 infantry hits don't count, but we do have 2 armour hits, and we only needed 1 to take that out. But it's simultaneous. He still gets a go. Except, of course, that all of the enemy here are in woods. So he too has to minus 1 die, which takes him down to 0 dice. So the US have not scored any perceptible hits there at all. We take off our artillery counter, turn it over. It's fired. We can't use that again this turn. I overdid it maybe, but it was so vital. Looking at all these here, that for me, that was the vital counter to remove. I didn't want to take any chances at all. Boom. He's been blown away. We've still only spent 1 resource point, by the way, and both of those units have now attacked. Okay, so I put an attacked counter on them. Now, I don't usually like using management counters during games. I find them obtrusive. But these are pretty easy to use. They're simple to understand. But the reason I'm using them is because although they've carried out an attack, it reminds me that those units can still move. But I don't have to finish those moves. And again, you can come back to them. So there isn't a movement phase and then a combat phase. You mix and match how you strategically or tactically see fit. So this unit that is attacked is now going to move. I could move other units or attack with other units, but I just want to move him first. So I want to go 3 because he's moving into a zone of control. This is a zone of control, and you always pay the highest hex cost. And the hex cost for a zone of control is 3. So he's moving 3, 4. He is now moved as well as attacked. So I just turn the counter over, finished. So far I used 1 resource point for the attack here and another resource point to move that unit. My third resource point is going to be into this zone of control, which is 3 points, 3 movement points, and he has 6, look there by my thumb. That's my second movement for 6 movement points, and I've used 1 more resource point. That reminds me he's moved. I'm going to put in another attack here. This is a very strong unit. By the way, during turn 1, quite naturally, all the units are in supply. At the beginning of the next turn, we'll have to check for being in supply. I'm putting in a big attack on this full strength unit here. Now this unit, the 99th American unit here, is a full strength 4-step unit. It's now going to be attacked by 5 die from the SS, 2 die there, that's 7, and 2 more die here, that's 9. But all of them, because they're in the woods, have to subtract 1 die, which brings us down to 6 die in this attack here. But we only pay 1 resource point for the attack on that single hex. And we have 6 die to play with. And we roll the 6 die. Bang! Boom! And this time it's an infantry unit that we're attacking. What do we have? We have 1 hit, 2 hit, and the rest are misses. So you see, it's actually not easy to get the hits you need. So that's giving me 2 hits on this unit here. This unit here that attacks with 3 die. These guys are in the woods, so it has to minus a die, so it's only going to attack with 2. And it achieved an infantry hit. So that's an armor, so the infantry hit has to come off here. Now look, that's a 2-2 unit, 2-step unit. That will now turn over to a single step unit. This guy here has lost 2. So he's lost 1, and now that has to be replaced with its 2-step replacement, like so. And both of those units have been in combat. They haven't yet moved. Just to remind myself, I can now turn over that counter, because that unit there has moved and attacked, so he's now finished. And I think finally in this sector, I'm moving my armoured division here, half, and to move into the woods here will cost 2, so that's 2.5. So he's moved for a resource point, and this infantry unit 2 into the rough terrain. So he's moved for a resource point. You get through your resource points fairly quickly. These 2 are now going to attack using 4 dice and 2 dice, but into the rough. So the infantry unit is minus 1 die, so he's just using 1 dice. This is all on the terrain chart. The armoured unit attacking into the rough is minus 2 dice. So it's 2, 3 dice only. Let's attack. And we're looking for armoured results, not infantry. because that's an armoured unit that we're attacking there, with just 3 dice and not a single hit. It's done nothing. Now, the defender gets a chance to retaliate, but he's -1 die for attacking into the woods, but he gets a +1 die for defending a town. So he's only going to roll 1 die. Here we go, 1 die and nothing. So that's a stalemate there. Good defense by the Americans, and both of those units have finished their actions for this turn. I don't think I can be able to move those really. Those need to stay and keep pressing the attack. So, wow, look at that. I think I've, so far anyway, completed any moves I want to make with 6th Panzer Army here. These are finished anyway. These guys could make a move, but really there's nowhere for them to move. They need to keep up the pressure here. Great resistance here by these US forces. I did expect to get some kind of a breakthrough here. I really did. But because of that town, and because it's in the hills and the forest, they held on. Now, okay, the main thrust here has been reasonably successful, and they're on their way towards Malmedy. The Germans have used 6 of their 20 resource points for this turn. There they are. We're on the 14 resource points now. You can't save resource points up for the next turn, by the way. It's use them or lose them. Now, we need to concentrate on 5th Panzer Army and this thrust here, because one of our objectives is Bastogne, this major crossroads here. Take that, and we have another route to the northwest as the German forces. So, let's spend some resource points. It's the thrust of the 5th Panzer Army. Okay, so absolutely the first thing that the German forces need to do is to punch a hole along this road here. And Clairvaux is only held by a single step unit of the 28th of the 110th Infantry. And further along the road, we have a very small single step armoured unit here. So the first thing that's going to happen, activate for 1 resource point this 26th Infantry, and they're going to cross the river into this wooded area here. 2 to enter the woods, movement points, plus an extra movement point for crossing that river hex side. And they're going to stop there. A reminder, they've moved. So that was 1 more resource point. Another resource point now will be to attack this hex. We've got to move that unit to free up the route for the panzer layer behind. The bridging here isn't having an effect on combat, but they're in a wooded area, -1 die, -1 die. So this is 2 die, and that's 3, a total of 5 die. And 1 more resource point to attack this hex. Let's go. 5 die. They can hear the rumbling of the tracks. And through the mist, boom, boom. Oh, what have we got? Oh, 2 hits. 2 infantry hits out of those 5 die. So that unit is eliminated anyway. But he gets a chance to battle back. It would be -1 die for firing into the wooded area. So that would leave 0, but +1 die because he's defending a town. So it's 1 die only. That's all he has to defend with. Best of luck, guys. Nothing. Nothing. No results. So this guy, bang, he's gone. That unit has attacked, 2nd Panzer. That unit has completed because it's moved and attacked. So that's finished. For another resource point, Panzer Lehr is coming through. Half, 1.5. 2, 3, 4, 5 because it's an enemy zone of control. The Germans have taken Clairvaux. Panzer Lehr has moved. Second Panzer will complete their move like so. Thing I've got to think, does Panzer Lehr now want to, it's a 3-step unit you see, risk attacking that? Yes, they will. One more resource point and it'll be our 4th resource point to attack this unit in the woods here. 4 dice comes down to 3. Let's go. Can they continue this push? And the way will be open to Bastogne. Boom, boom. Nothing. Not a result. Plucky Americans holding the road through the woods there. They get 2 die for defence, -1 for fighting into the woods. They will get 1 die. Come on. Come on, the guy. No, nothing. Okay. So, Panzer Lehr have been held up. You see, despite the simplicity, this little game still manages to throw up a thematic element to the Battle of the Bulge, because we all want to learn something, don't we? When we're playing these, or we're refighting these battles of World War II, and we're seeing how these small units of bloody stubborn resistance and these narrow roads through the Ardennes can hold up the enemy armour and start to cause a traffic jam. One of the reasons that the Battle of the Bulge is such an iconic game to play, it's that stubborn defence, as well as the desperate effort, the last gasp of the Wehrmacht. I'm thinking 5th Army should have used their artillery there, and they didn't. So another 4 resource points we've used here so far. Okay, let's tackle this area here. I want to widen the gap as the Germans push open the door. So these 3 units, without even moving, are going to attack this 1-step infantry unit here because they're in the rough. So 2 dice, that makes it 6, that makes it 8, but reduced by 1 each. So that's 3 off 8 is 5. 5 dice to attack this 1 hex here and 1 resource point. Let's go with our 5 dice. You're surrounded, guys. Boom, 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 boom. Hold the bridge. No chance. 1, 2 hits. Because they're attacking an infantry unit, you see. So if there is no armour defence to apply it to, the armour hit will still count against the infantry. So that is actually 2 hits on the infantry. They're defunct anyway. They're gone. And in fact, I just realised for attacking into the rough, because that's rough there, look, not just woods, that armoured unit should have minused another die. So instead of rolling 5 die, we should have only rolled 4. But as you can see, 2 hits. Anyway, so at least one of those would have been scored. That unit is still a goner. And unfortunately, it doesn't get to battle back because it will lose its single die because of fighting into the woods. So that is a goner, that brave unit there, meaning the bridge is open and all these guys have attacked. We're going to move for another resource point, 3 because of the zone of control from here, 4, and finish. You see how easy the markers are to use and how useful they are. On the way to St. Vith, 3 points to move over the river, and finished. And that was another resource point. Finish our move there in that zone of control. Look how we're opening the door, we're pushing the door open. Now finally, for another resource point, this unit here is going to attack this quite big 4-step unit in the rough, but we check supply at the moment of combat, even for the defender, and the defender is out of supply. It cannot trace a supply route without going through an enemy zone of control. That's out of supply. So we put an out of supply marker on it. And for combat, that'll mean it gets 1 less dice in combat, as if it needed it. Good grief. So this unit, the 18th, is going to attack the 106th. -1 die, so it's down to 2 for attacking into the rough. But boom! 5th Panzer Army's artillery are going to chip in, and the commander, Manteuffel, pulls alongside in his staff car. Get yourselves moving! Take that position! +1 die from Manteuffel. So, 2 die because of the rough. 1 for the artillery, that's 3. 1 for Manteuffel, that's 4. 4 die. Let's give it a go. 1 attack going in here, look. Boom, boom. 1. That's it. 1. 4 die. And despite Manteuffel and despite the artillery, just 1 infantry hit. Okay, the artillery has been used. It's been fired, look. Manteuffel has been used, so he's finished. So remember, that's taken 1 hit. Meanwhile, it can fire back, but it only gets 2 die. -1 for the woods and -1 for being out of supply. No attack, or rather, its short supply and firing into the woods has had virtually no effect on that attacking unit there. And for me, that finishes it for 5th Panzer Army. So this is the position the Germans are creating that bulge. They are on their way to Bastogne, on their way to St. Vith, and on their way to Malmedy, held up in the north. And now we just have the 7th Army to go. And meanwhile, their resource points are right down to just 6 resource points left. Now, there's not a lot to do down this neck of the woods. And we've got 6 resource points left. So, 1 movement to there for a resource point. The Paras are going to use 3 movement points to cross the river into the woods. Well, actually, it was all 4 movement points, to be honest, because they moved into a zone of control. And again, another 3 movement points to move into this zone of control here for that unit. And another resource point, of course. So that's 3 of those 5 resource points. Sorry, 3 of those 6 resource points that we have left have already been used. And one more resource point. Here we go. You've seen it already. There's going to be an attack. -1 die, -1 die because of the woods. So that's 2, 3 dice. Plus the artillery, 4 dice. I don't think you're going to be able to see this dice roll. I do apologise. I'll do the dice roll. 4 dice for the Germans attacking the 109. And what do they have? Nothing. Not a thing. The artillery helped none. And again, the plucky Americans hold the bridge. Despite the fact that they're attacking into the woods, which gives a -1 die, doesn't have any result on the Germans. And that's the end of turn 1 for the Germans. They're right down to 2 resource points only. When you're first starting the turn, it seems, oh, I've got loads of resource points. No, you haven't. Which is why I refrained from moving some of them. Anyhow, they're down to 2 resource points. Now it's the turn of the plucky American troops. And at this point, all of the counters, the management counters, can come off because we're declaring that the Germans have finished their move. They're still out of supply, so that'll stay where it is. And let's see what, if anything, the Americans will do. It could be argued, with that plucky defence, they've already done enough. But we'll have a quick look anyway. So it's the Americans' turn, and the first thing we need to think about is, are there any US reinforcements? Well, no, not until turn 2. Can the US refit, recover any of its damaged units? I'm going to say yes, because what I can see right here, okay, this is the 99th, this infantry unit here. It's down to just 2 steps out of the original 4. It was hit hard. Is it in supply? Because it can only refit if it's in supply. And yes, it is. Because its supply line will go all the way through here and off the board. And despite the enemy zones of control, friendly units negate those zones of control for supply purposes. So it may not look so at first glance, but yes, that unit is in supply. Therefore, I can spend 1 resource point to refit that unit. I can only refit 1 step. At the moment, it's on 2 steps out of 4. So if I remove that, that's the 99th Infantry, and replace it with its 3-step. There it is, 3 steps. And we've used 1 resource point to do that. That is so going to annoy your German opponents. That's brilliant. So simple, yet very sweet. Now, in general, I'm going to keep this barrier here. I love the way they're in the hills, and therefore they're a tough target for the Germans to crack. I could benefit by spending 1 resource point just to move this guy back into the hills here and dig in. So that's what we'll do. It's going to cost 3 because it's the higher cost of the hex and it's an enemy zone of control. So 1 of the resource point to move that unit there. Now, remember, the US only started with 6 movement points for the whole turn. We've got to be very, very sparing. So there you go. Not spending any more resource points there. We're not going to use any resource points to attack. Our strength at the moment is in our defence. Brings us to this unit here. It's a bit out in the open. It's actually doing nothing there. What we'll need to do is throw zones of control along this road, I think. So we'll spend a resource point to move this armoured unit half along the road. And then instead of going into Malmedy, we're going to go into the mountains here. And again, dig in along the road. So we're going to spend 1 movement point to cross the river and 3 movement points to enter those mountains there. A total of 4. That's 4.5. We've moved. And that's where we're staying. We shall not be moved. You see how it's throwing a zone of control all around here. There is method in the madness. This guy here is still out of supply. Every hex he tries, he's going through a zone of control, and there's no allied units that can negate those. And being out of supply, he's not going to attack. He'll stay in that rough terrain there. We have just 3 resource points left. So delicate. But I love this. You can really be a thorn in the side of this German advance with some tiny, well-placed units. For instance, let's look at this small armoured unit here now. He's held them up so far, he's in the woods. But what if he was in the more mountainous area? 1 resource point to move there. And basically, the Germans have still got to try and get through him. Now let's look down here. We're on 2 resource points. I'm going to use one of them to move into Ettelbruck, which is mountainous, more difficult to attack in. 2 resource points left, and everything else will stay where it is. Why? Well, we're certainly not going to try and attack German units that are sitting behind the west wall, the Siegfried line, because to do so, they would get +2 die for defending behind the Siegfried line. So no, we're going to do our job and sit and defend in the best possible position that we can. Well, here we go for turn 2, and there's no doubt about it, we have our bulge. So, Allied turn track. Turn 2, down here, shows us that we have 8 resource points this time. The weather is misty, so there's a chance for 1 air unit. Let's move our resource points along the track to 8. Shows us that the Germans on turn 2, they have 20 resource points still. So let's give it back to them. There they are. And there'll be a couple of reinforcements this turn. Let's start straight away with the German offensive. So first thing we want to bring on is the Kampfgruppe von der Heiter. There they are. Attached to the 6th Panzer Army. Now notice, 0 die. They got no real combat value. Their value is to disrupt supply lines. Now these guys would drop behind enemy lines in US uniform. So let's do that now. So first of all, we look for a vacant hex within 5 hexes of the Siegfried line. This is the west wall here, Siegfried line. And I'm thinking vacant hex here. And the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to roll a d6. So let's do that. And it's a 3. So we know it hasn't quite landed there. If we'd have rolled a 6, by the way, we'd have landed exactly where we wanted it to. If we'd have rolled a 1, it would have been eliminated. Anything else, and it's scattered. Let's see where. Roll the die again. And a 6. Okay, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hoo-hoo! If it scatters on top of another unit, if it scatters on top of an enemy unit, it's eliminated. Kampfgruppe von der Hater is eliminated. Oh, nice result for the US. Now, our second reinforcement is this one. There we go, that's a bit better. It's the 150th SS. It's just a single step unit. It's grey, but look, it has that olive drab border all the way around it. In other words, it's disguised. These guys have American uniforms and equipment. Jeeps, half-tracks, and a couple of Shermans. They're going to come on the board here, and they're disguised, so they can move into or through a US zone of control, but each time they do so, they roll a d6, and a 4, 5, 6 means that they managed to pass unmolested. 1, 2, 3, and they're discovered, and they would have to pay the normal movement costs. But at the moment, they're going to sit there. Now, can we refit a unit? The only one that needs refitting is this guy. He's in supply, no problem. We'll pay 1 resource point to turn him over and refit. Like so. So that's 1 resource point paid. I'm going to pay another resource point now. 3. In fact, all 4 points because we crossed a river and he's in a zone of control. First SS is on the move. 3. 6 movement points. And we'll attack. We'll pay 1 resource point to attack. And we have, let's see, it's in the rough. So it's -1 from those 3 die, so that's 2. This guy, -2 for attacking into the rough, and minus another 1 for attacking across a river. So -3, so that's 2 die and 2 die. 4 die, that's all. Can we use our artillery? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we're still in range. Range of the artillery is just 5 hexes from the Siegfried line. So the Germans are using their artillery. 2 die and another 2 die. That's a heck of a reduction. So that's 4, 5 die altogether. Let's roll. And we've got 2 infantry, 3 infantry hits. But it's an armoured unit. It hasn't budged. Completely ineffective. And I'm really pleased because as the US player, I was justified in moving that unit into the mountains, into which the first SS have to attack and across a river. So, there you go. The artillery has been spent. These guys, are also spent. But now, can the US fight back? They get 2 die in the attack. It's a small unit. It's a tiny unit. But they would have to -1 to attack these infantry here. Minus another 1, in fact. So they cannot attack the armoured unit because they're across the river. But they do get 1 die here, so we may as well try that. 1 die. Looking for an infantry result, and they get it! Plucky Americans grabbing a result there. So that 3-3 unit is now 2 of 3. Wow, what a result. All about positioning, hiding out in the hills, setting up killing zones. All of these are going to be so tough to crack, seeing as they are dug into the mountainous areas. Okay, we'll spend another resource point to attack this single step unit here, although it's a mechanized unit. So we have 2, it's going to -1, so that's just 1 die. 4 here for this armoured unit, but it's going to -2, so that's just 2, so 3 die for attacking into that area. Let's give it a go. Boom, boom. Not a single result. Nothing. Well held, sir. They've attacked. But now, this unit is going to spend another resource point to move. Spend 3 points, it's an infantry unit, to move into that zone of control there. And that is to place a zone of control along this road. Excellent move, and he's finished. This airborne unit here, 3 movement points to move into that zone of control. And the same here for this infantry unit. 3 movement points to move into that zone of control. And we've used another 2 resource points. Now it's important to point out this unit cannot now trace a supply line along here, because his route is interdicted by this unit that moved there. The situation changes very quickly now. So he's out of supply. Interestingly, these 2 German units are still in supply, although it looks like they're not, but with their own friendly units negating enemy zones of control, they can still trace a path through here, 1, 2, 3 hexes onto this road, and then through that unit to supply. Oh, just about. So, 2 die and 3 die, -1 each for attacking into there. Just 3 dice to roll. That's not a lot to get a result. Let's give it a go. Bang! And nothing, and an armour hit. What have we got? An armour hit, if there's no armour there to apply it to, still applies to an infantry unit. It's been hit. Bang! I'll replace that in a moment. Can it try? Well, it's out of supply. It would -1 die into the woods, minus another one for being out of supply. It can't respond, but it's still performing a useful duty there, holding up these units. Now I need to replace this unit again, back down to a 2-step unit, like so. And it's bravely holding on. Okay, we'll spend some more resource points. We're going to move this unit here. They're going to move on. They're just going to pass on through some Vith. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's moved and used 1 resource point. That's 10 resource points in total now. Half of them gone. The 116th armoured. Another resource point. 3, because of this zone of control. 3.5. 4. 4.5. 5.5. 6. A heck of a move. And we'll stick a German control marker on St. Vith. Panzerlehr continue their drive towards Bastogne. 3 movement points. Second Panzer, half and 2. Oh, this poor single step unit here is about to get assaulted. The infantry here, 1, 2, and now stop there for another resource point. Now for the attack. An armoured attack into the hilly mountainous area here, the rough, is -2 die. So that's just 2 die, and that's just 2 dice, that's 4. Does our artillery reach? Here's the Siegfried line, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's within 5 hexes. Kabam. So 4 die plus 1 is 5. Is this unit still in supply? There's no line can be traced that way, but here he can still trace a line. He's in supply. 5 die. 3, 4, 5. Boom! And the sky lights up. Bang! Oh, look at those hits. 1, 2. And an infantry hit. So that's the result. 2 armour hits for that unit there. It is eliminated. Will it get a chance to fight back? Well, its 2 die is -1 because of the wooded terrain. But what we'll do is add our 1 airstrike. The weather is misty, but it does allow us 1 airstrike, and we can use it to attack or defend. We'll defend. So that 1 die becomes 3. Come on, let's get a result as the thunderbolts come roaring in. Oh! 1 armoured hit from the P-47 rockets. The both armoured units, I can actually decide where that hit goes. It's going here. Not a bad result from that plucky defence of that mountainous road. It sacrificed itself. It sacrificed itself to hold them up just enough to get that airstrike in. Oh, crumbs. So, we'll remove that plucky unit. We've moved the artillery. It's now spent. Remove the airstrike. That's spent for this turn. Amazing combat there. This unit of airborne here is finally going to cross the river for 4 movement points and a resource point. And another resource point there, so that's another 2 resource points. And they will put in an attack here with 2 die and 1 die. Total of 3 die plus the artillery. 4 die. Boom! They're attacking the town. Oh, 0, 0, 0. I know you didn't see that, but that was absolutely 0 from everywhere. The defenders are -1 because of the woods, but they get a +1 for defending a town. So they will roll 1 die. Here goes. Infantry hit. We'll decide where that goes. It's going to go here. Well done. What a defence being put up here. That artillery spent. And that was another resource point, of course. Now I've just totaled it up. The Germans have used a total of 16 of their 20 resource points so far. And of course, they moved and attacked. So they're actually finished. Look at that battlefield now. So different. And now, although I'm not going to complete the American full turn, what I am going to do is they have just 2 reinforcing units that come on this turn. Here they are. And they're both armoured units, one in the north, one in the south. Okay? And the first armoured unit, which is the 10th, is going to come on in the south, and it's going to pay half, 1, 1.5, 2 to race to Baston and move into the rough terrain. That's a 3-step unit. And the unit in the north comes on at N4, which is up here. And this is another 3-step unit of armour. And they're just going to move down like so, where they can interdict in both directions if necessary. And it looks like the Americans will hold out in this turn, and then in turn 3, they have a fair amount of reinforcements coming on, including the 82nd and 101, those airborne units that will provide some fierce resistance for the campaign. So I hope you've all enjoyed the demo. I've absolutely loved playing it. I get a lot of joy from moving these big counters around. And to be honest, for a simple rule set, a quick playing game, relatively abstracted combat results, it still has the whole thing. It has the BULGE campaign there. It still manages to teach us how small units can hold up vast amounts of armour and cause traffic jams on the roads. How supply was absolutely critical for both sides. And interdicting those supply lines is a crucial element of the game, and using those resource points only where they're absolutely most needed. It plays quickly. You can use it as an introductory war game, and I'd thoroughly recommend it to new wargamers, or forget all that, for anyone, even a seasoned wargamer. This is a brilliant game that you can actually play to fruition, to completion in one evening. Gets a thumbs up from me, absolutely love it. So, hope you've enjoyed it, hope you'll come back soon, hope you can like the video, and it'd be great if you could subscribe. Thanks a lot, see you again. Bye bye now.